Shalom Aleichem and welcome everyone as we are preparing for Shabbat, Parshat Vayechi, Shabbat Hazak Hazak V'nid Hazek, as we are coming to the completion of Sefer Bereshit. Just a few weeks ago, we started Sefer Bereshit, and Baruch Hashem, we've had the opportunity week after week to learn through the Parashat, some of the lessons, some of the nice stories that we can learn from there and apply to our lives. Hashem should give us a success this week as well. And Hashem for many, many weeks to come as we continue to delve into the Parshiot, Parsha after Parsha. This week's Parsha being Parashat Vayechi. Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov is living in Eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov gets sick. Yaakov is not feeling well. Yaakov realizes he's going to die, so he calls Yosef. He calls Yosef. He tells him, if I found favor in your eye, place your hand under my thigh. And make for me a chesed ve'emet, a kindness that's truthful. Don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Yaakov wanted to be buried in Israel. He didn't want to be buried in Mitzrayim. And he told Yosef, make a chesed ve'emet. And Rashi right away comments, what is chesed ve'emet? Rashi said, chesed ve'emet, chesed she'osin imhatim. If you make a chesed with the dead person, you help bury them, you help take care of the dead, they don't have a way to pay you back. Who chesed shelemet. It's a truthful chesed. You're doing it just for that person, not for something in return. It's a chesed shel emet. He does not look forward to being paid back. A real chesed is a chesed that you do something for somebody, not expecting him to pay you back. That's the real chesed. Rav Wolbe says it doesn't have to just be performing chesed for the dead. You can actually perform chesed for the living person also, and it could be considered a true chesed. How? If you give tzedakah anonymously, nobody knows, or you do something not for the newspapers, not for the name, not for the glitz and the glamour, but really because you're trying to do the chesed. And he doesn't think, oh, maybe if I do this now, later on someone's going to help me, something's going to happen to me. All that is true. It's going to happen. If you do chesed, it's going to help you back later on. And we're going to have a story shortly about this. However, in order to be considered doing true chesed ve'emet, is I'm doing the chesed just to do chesed. I'm not expecting anything back. If a person does that, he can really do chesed. Now, how you do that? Bitzina. When you do it privately. You do a chesed anonymously. You don't tell anybody about that chesed. You know what's doing a mitzvah anonymously? Yosef HaTzadik is all alone in Eretz Mitzrayim. He's in Mitzrayim, right? He got sold. He's in Mitzrayim before the brothers came and met him, and then he becomes king. In what zechut he became king? In what zechut? In what merit did his prophecy come true? Listen to what the Targum Onkelos tells us in this week's parasha. When Yaakov is giving barachat to Yosef on the pasuk. In 49:24, the pasuk says in Hebrew, "V'teshev be'etan kashto," but his bow was firmly in place. But listen to the way Targum translates: "V'tavat behon nevuoteh al dekayem oriata b'sitra." Do you know why Yosef's nevuah came true? Nevuotah al dekayem oriata b'sitra. Yosef kept learning Torah in Mitzrayim when nobody was around. Nobody knew he was keeping the Torah. Nobody knew he was keeping the mitzvot. And he was learning. Secretly, nobody knew. And since he was learning in private, nobody making the fanfare. Oh, what a big Talmid Chacham, what an Avrei, what a great guy.
How he learned, where he got all this stuff.
He remembered what he learned with his father. He kept remembering and reviewing. And since he learned B'Sitra, since he learned in private, nobody saw, nobody made a big deal about it, all his nivu'ah came true. When you do a chesed, you do a mitzvah, you do anything b'tzina, privately, it's worth way, way, way more than doing something in public when people see. Because when people see, maybe you're doing it for them. Maybe you're not doing it for real reasons. Maybe you're doing it for alternative reasons, which is also a good thing to do. However, a true mitzvah, a true chesed, a true mitzvah is when you do something privately, something in secret. that is considered a true hesed. I want to share with you a story that's made its rounds in the Jewish community over the years, especially Parshat Vayechi. It's a very, very fascinating story. I think the first time I ever heard this story is when I was at an Onik Shabbat with Harav Baruch Babayev Shlita, and we were sitting there in someone's house, and Baruch Babayev shared this story, and then later on I saw it, and as I was preparing for this week's Parshat, this story came up to me 4 times in 4 different places that I looked, that as I was reviewing. And so I said, if this story came up already after once, I was already going to say it. But it came up 4 times. I said, if it came up 4 times, I'm for sure saying it. So what's the story? It's a story about Hesed ve'emet, as doing a true Hesed. There was a wealthy businessman, salesman, and he was upstate New York, conducting business in the winter. And they said the weather was going to be okay and normal, and he planned all his business activity. And in the middle of the day, all of a sudden, the forecast changed, and they said a huge snowstorm was coming. And so he canceled all his meetings, and he said, I have to make it back to the city. And as he's trying to get onto the highways, the bridges, and getting back to the city, they shut everything down. They told him, you can't cross, it's too dangerous. It's a true story, by the way, a very, very true story. And so he goes back, and he tries to find a motel. Every motel he goes to is completely booked. He can't get in. People are already sleeping in the hallways in the motel. There's no place to lay down. So he's looking around. He can't find one motel, second motel, finally the third motel. He's listening. You got to tell me, where can I go? I can't find it. There's nothing left in this place. The storm is coming. I don't want to sleep in my car. So the manager thinking, says, listen, I have no space for you, but I imagine that the nursing home nearby may have a bed or 2. Maybe they can give it to you. Maybe you can sleep there. So he drives up to the nursing home. He goes to the nursing home. He gets inside. He tells them, listen, I'm stranded. I can't get back to my house in the city. All the other motels are full. I need a place to stay. Can you please help me? And the supervisor of the nursing home said, listen, this is not a hotel for you. You can't just get a bed to sleep on here. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, we can't help you. He says, please, you can't set me out. I have nowhere else to go. I have nowhere else to do. I can't do anything. You need to help me out. So the supervisor feels bad for him and says, listen, in my office I have a couch. I'll let you have the couch. Take the couch. In the morning you have to leave. But I'll give you the night you can spend here on my couch in my office. No. The guy does his best. He goes to the couch. He sleeps as best as he can. The sun comes out. As he's ready to leave, he walks over to the supervisor. He says, the supervisor, I appreciate everything you did for me. I want to really thank you. I would like to pay for my stay. And the supervisor said again, this is not a hotel. You don't pay for stays. You're not even supposed to be here. Just leave and everything will be fine. And he said, listen, I can't just leave. I'm a Jew. And Jewish people, if you do a hesed, you do a favor for us, we have to pay you back. Let me pay you a little bit. Let me give you some tip. So the guy said, 1 second, you said you were Jewish? He says, yeah. He says, listen, then maybe you could help me out. He says, we had in this nursing home 1 Jewish resident. And this Jewish resident passed away about 2 days ago. We were going to send him to get cremated, burnt into ashes, as we do with most of our residents who don't have any family. But as we were about to send him to the crematory, we saw in his file that he asked to have a Jewish burial. We don't have any contacts with Jewish burial societies, so I don't know, but maybe you can figure something out, and maybe you can help out over here. So he said, of course, maybe. And he's thinking in the back of his head, that's maybe why I ended up here in the first place, to help out this Jewish person who died. So he said, okay. So the supervisor said, you're going to help? He said, sure. He calls his workers. He says, take the body, load it in his car. He gives them the paperwork. He says, now you have the permits to travel with the dead body, and figure out where you're going to bury this guy. So now, all of a sudden in his minivan, he has a dead body in there, and he doesn't know where to go. So he calls a couple of people. This is about, going back 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So he doesn't even know where to go. So He calls up his shul. He asks about a cemetery nearby. They say no, there's no property, there's no lot. You can't put him. That. He's asking around. So finally, someone told him. One of the rabbis told him that in Washington Heights, there's a German Jewish community that they have special burial plots for people who don't have any family. Go take that body there, and they'll help you out. So he drives to that cemetery. He finally gets there, and he walks to the supervisors there, the agents, whoever's in charge. He tells them the whole story. They say, okay. They gives him the paperwork. He looks down. The person who looks at it, he reads the name. He said the name was Goldberg, Schwartz, whatever it was. He read the name, and he fainted. He just falls down and faints. So this guy, the guy that was this businessman who was there, he tries to wakes him up. He says, "Why you fainted? What happened? What's going on?" He says, "This guy that you just brought in the back of your van, 30 years ago, he came here to this cemetery and gave us $30,000 and told us, if anyone ever dies and doesn't have family and nowhere to bury them here. And throughout the years, we've been doing the mitzvah of burying a mitzvah who don't have any family, and we're burying him here. For 30 years, no one saw this guy, no one knew what happened to him, where he went. And today, you brought him back over here." You made a chesed ve'emet. When a person does an honest chesed, Hashem 100% pays him back. Who you want to get paid back from? Hashem, or you want to get paid back from people? I think it's much better to get paid back from Hashem. Therefore, when you do a chesed, when you do a real chesed, do it emet, do it strictly for the chesed, for the mitzvah. Don't think about other people. Don't think about other things. Just do it because Hashem said to do it. It's a chesed, it's a good thing. And don't worry, Hashem will 100% pay you back many times full. This is a famous story. It went around the circles. If you ever heard about it, it's a nice reminder. If not, this is a good story to share with the family. Let's continue on another lesson in this week's Parshat. In this week's Parshat, Yaakov calls his whole family, and he starts to give them berachot, starts to give them blessings. He gives Yehuda an interesting blessing. He gives Yehuda, he says as follows, so this is in chapter 49, verse 12, right? What does it say here? To Yehuda, he says, Chachlilei enayim meyayin, uven shenayim mehalav. Red-eyed from wine, and white tooth from milk. That Yehuda should have red eyes from drinking wine, should have good, nice wine in his thing, and he should have white teeth from drinking milk. This is Yaakov's blessing to Yehuda. Have nice wine and have good teeth. Really? So the Gemara in Talmud Ketubot tells us. What does it mean? Yehuda. Remember, Yehuda is going to be the leader. He's going to be the king, his tribe. So what does it mean? Yaakov is giving a bracha to have white teeth. So it says as follows. You know what it means? Tov hamalibin shinayim lehavero yoter mishkehu halav. One who shows his white teeth, smiles to his friend, is greater than one who gives milk to his friend. Meaning, smiling, making someone feel good, is greater than actually giving them something. You have to know what it means to influence and be a leader, right? You can't just be a leader you technically could become an authoritative tyrant and take over, but if you want to become a real leader people follow, you have to be someone who influences, someone who changes the way people think about themselves. Now, one of the things you can do about that is to make somebody feel good. And the Gemara tells us, by showing someone your teeth, by smiling at them, you make them feel good. You know what else the Gemara tells us? The Gemara Tani tells us. People say as follows. This is what people really think. The psychology of a person. O havruta, o mituta. You know what that means? Either I have a friend, or I'd rather be dead. Listen to what it says in Gemara Baba Batra. Im en le'adam ohavim, noach lo shiamot. If a person doesn't have friends, better than he is dead. Not to have friends is worse than being dead. It's like you're all alone in this world, no one to talk to, no one to be with. Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, King Solomon. During his time, they had what's called Pax Solomon. The whole world was under the peace of Solomon. How did he create that? You know what he said? He said a famous pasuk in Mishlei, Mavet v'chayim biyad lashon. Life and death is in the hand of the tongue. You know, they have a saying in English. The saying goes, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. 100% wrong. Sticks and stones will break your bones, yes, but you'll heal. Words can completely destroy a person. Hayim u'mavet. Mavet v'chayim biyad lashon. On the mitzvah, ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your fellow like yourself. You know what the Rambam says that means? What does it mean to love your fellow like yourself? You know what the Rambam says it means? Lefikach tzarich lesaper b'shpocho. They mean you have to tell your friend good stuff about him. That's what it means. You love your friend? Tell him something good. Tell him a compliment. Tell him something nice. Yehuda, Yaakov's blessing to Yehuda was smile at people so they feel good about you. They feel good about themselves. They feel they have a friend. And if they're your friend, of course they're going to want to follow you. You know what it says? In Avot de Rabbi Natan, it says, Hamkabel chavero b'sefer panim yafot. If you welcome your friend with a happy face, afilu notan lo klum. You didn't give him anything. What'd you give him? You didn't lose anything. It's as if you gave him all the presents in the world. When you see somebody and you smile at them, you see somebody and you say hi and you give them a compliment, you tell them something good about them, you change their whole world. You change their whole world. For us men, think about it for 1 second. We have a relationship with our wives. All right, so much so that we're considered one body. Right? Man and a woman considered one. Now, yeah, all have Baruch Hashem an Eshet Hayel. An Eshet Hayel, she goes to the store, she buys a nice dress, she gets makeup, she puts on her matbaha, she puts on her wig, whatever it is, and she dresses up. Who is she dressing up for? She's dressing up for you, the husbands. Right?
Maybe.
Right? We hope so. Right? A Jewish woman is dressing up and she's making herself dolled up for who? For her husband. And now her husband, so busy with his own life, forgets that his wife is part of him and doesn't give her compliments. So how does she feel? I remember when I was getting married, my grandmother told me, she said, you're getting married? You don't have any friends. Your only friend is your wife. So if the Gemara Ta'anit says, O chavruta, O mituta, either a friend or death, and now that you're married, the only friend you have is your spouse, and if you don't give them a compliment, then what'd you do? You have nothing. You're killed. Baruch Hashem. Our Eshet Chayil sit, they stand, and the whole Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, they're cooking, cleaning, making Shabbat. And then we come home. Quickly. I gotta go. I want to sleep. I want to go back to shul. What happened to thank you for the food? Thank you for this. Every time I'm talking to myself also. Everyone forgets. You're so busy, rushing, doing. You're tired yourself. But what about the compliment? And it applies to the wife just as much to the husband also. The husband does so many things. And Matt, he does a lot. And if you don't tell him thank you, he doesn't want to do it anymore because I didn't get a thank you. It was kabuta. It's expected me to do it. And if I don't do it, it's a problem. If I do it, no one acknowledges it. But what does a compliment cost already? What does a smile cost? Doesn't cost anything. Doesn't take anything from you. Some men will say, I can't talk. I have what to say. I'd lose words. So I asked him, and before you got married and you were dating, how much you talked? Hours and hours on the phone, late into the night. Then you had what to talk about. Then you got married, everything, you forgot how to talk.
She talked.
She talked. Right. She talked all by herself till 12 o'clock. Right, to 1 o'clock.
You just start the subject and she just continues.
The truth is that there's a couple of things here. Men are very pragmatic. We think very straight. We try to fix problems, problem solve. Most men, that's the way they are. Women, on the other hand, want to talk about emotions, feelings, something that's abstract, and we don't usually on the same wavelength for these type of things. But when you're excited about another person, right? When you're happy about another person, you work it out with each other. You make it happen. Like when you were really excited when you were dating, all of a sudden you had what to speak about. Then, for whatever reason, you started, that's why they say, Rav Pam always said, Rav Pam would say, the courtship must continue. Meaning, the dating must continue. Once you get married, you don't say, I'm married already, that's it. Now I can throw my socks on the floor, I can leave the toothbrush this way, that way, do whatever I want, I'm married already. No, he says you have to continue some form of dating to keep it alive, keep it happy, keep it exciting. You know, there was two rabbis once, they were questioning, is marriage something that started and continues, or is marriage continuously renewed? Every day it's something new. So they one of them said, no, it's something that's renewed every single day. So one rabbi, they're both old rabbis, like 80, 90 years old. They turned to each other and they said, Mazel Tov. So they said, why say Mazel Tov? If we got remarried again today. It's a new marriage. Every day it's a new marriage. It's a new way of looking at something. You have to look at it. The Zohar says, we mentioned this a couple of Shabbat ago here in the shul. The Zohar says, in Parshat Tazriah, Josh says it's an Avera to say Lashon Hara. If you were able to say something good and you didn't say it, that's also an Avera. Not only is it a mitzvah to say something good, if Hashalom, you had something good to say and you didn't say it, that's considered an Avera. That's what the Zohar says. And so, Rabotai, how important it is for us to think about this. Not only does compliments make someone feel good, it also gets them to become on our side and influences them. You create relationship, you build words like that. So, let's think about some places that we can use compliments. First of all, our spouses, we talked already. Our children. You want children to listen to us. So what are you going to tell them? Oh, you divol, nothing you understand, like a wall you are, I can't. That's definitely not going to make a relationship better. Right? If you say some good stuff to them, it's going to make them feel better. Not only that, the kids go to school. Who knows what happens in school? There are bullies. There are different things that are going on. The teacher picks on them, whatever it is. But if you feel like them feel good, they're able to withstand those pressures outside. What about the Rav Pam would say, the Baal Tefillah, person who prays in the shul. He just did an hour hazanut, and nobody even comes over to say anything to him. Or one guy says Chazak Bul, the guy sitting next to him. Everyone else is a kabut and chuni style, like nothing happened. Well, the guy just prayed. The Baal Koreh. We have a beautiful Baal Koreh every Shabbat. How many people come over to him and tell him after reading the Torah, Chazak Baruch, beautiful job, we really enjoyed it. It's important to say it. The guy just spent that time doing it. Tell him thank you. Someone gave a sermon, someone gave a lecture, someone gave a speech. It was a great job, I really enjoyed it. It gives that person hizuk. It makes him happy, it makes him feel that he wasn't wasting his time. People sit there and they walk out. It's like, what happened here? You know? You want to give a thank you to all these people. Thank yous also can change the way people feel about each other, right? If someone feels negative, someone else, if you say some compliments, all of a sudden the people start to change. I know someone tell me they had in college a professor who wasn't so friendly to them. So they started becoming friendly to them. And it worked. And then that professor became friendly to them. You build relationships this way. That's what Yaakov was telling Yehuda. You're the leader. You're going to be the king. You have to have relationships with everybody. You have to build worlds. You have to build people up. And how do you do that? It doesn't even cost money. Just splash your teeth. Say a nice word. Give a little hizuk. Say something nice to someone. Listen to this. Pam brings down the story of Yechiel Mordechai Gordon. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Lumza. He was on a fundraising mission in the United States when World War II broke out. He left his wife and children in Nazi-occupied Poland. And he was always worried about their safety. He became very fearful one day when the letters stopped coming. Days later, someone who escaped from the Nazi inferno visited him and told him that he saw with his own eyes that Rabbi Yechiel Mordechai's family was completely massacred, completely killed off. And Rav Gordon felt very, very bad about this. You can just imagine just finding out that your whole family was destroyed and you have nothing left. And suddenly, the door opened and a guest came in to see the Rosh Yeshiva. Rav Yechiel Mordechai's face changed radically. 1 second, he was all sad because of the news that his family heard. And all of a sudden, someone came in and he greeted the visitor with a happy Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, how are you? And a warm smile. The conversation soon ended and the visitor left. The man who brought the tragic news was still there, and he couldn't believe how 1 minute Rav Yechiel Mordechai Gordon was so sad, and the next minute he was all happy. And he said, how could you do this? And Rav Yechiel Mordechai said to him, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter used to say that a person's heart is a Reshut HaYachid. Your heart, the way you feel inside, that's your own personal place. But your face is a Reshut HaRabim. Everybody sees it. And therefore, on your face, you cannot be sad because you're making other people sad. Now, obviously, this is a very high madrega. It's not something that everybody's up to. It's something that this Rosh Yeshiva was up to. But there's still, the concept is there. Your face is Reshut HaRabim. You have to smile. Smile, by the way, they made a study, that was a couple years ago, scientific study, that smiling is actually contagious. When you smile, the next person smiles, and the next person smiles. It passes along because it's contagious. People like it. It makes people feel good, and so it continues. Yes, we're not a machine, but we cannot walk around with a sour face. It's important for us. Yaakov told Yehuda, the future king of Israel, that you have to walk around with a smile. You have to be happy. That's the way you're going to lead. That's the way you're going to influence. That's the way you're going to build. That's the way you're going to create. And this is something that we have to take with us in all our relationships, with all the people we have, with everyone that we encounter, is show a happy face. Show that we're excited. And we have so much to be excited for. Baruch Hashem, Hashem blesses us with so much. Let's move on to one more lesson from this week's Parshat. Another very important life lesson. In this week's Parshat, as Yaakov Avinu continues to give the berachot to his children, he continues to give berachot to his children. He gives bracha to Naphtali. He tells Naphtali, and remember this pasuk because it was at the Shem Friday night. I'm going to talk on this pasuk as well. Another divrei Torah from this pasuk. But tonight, this pasuk tells us Naphtali ayala shiluha hanoten imrei shafer. Naphtali is as fast as a ayala, a hind, a deer, sent off who will deliver beautiful sayings. That Naphtali was very fast. Now Gemara in Masechah Sotah tells us, you know what it means? He was very fast as a deer. Don't read it where it says imrei shefer, that he said nice words. Rather, the words of the book. What does this mean? Esav saw Yaakov's burial coming to Marat HaMachpelah, and Esav blocks the entrance. Esav says, this place belongs to me. I'm the Bechor. It belongs to me. The brothers, his nephews, right? Yosef and his brothers say, excuse me, my father bought it from you. It belongs to Yaakov, and Leah's already buried here. Then he says, I don't know, show me the star. Show me the deed of sale. So they said, Naphtali, you're the fastest. You go back and get it. Run back to Mitzrayim and get it. Now, the Gemara tells us something interesting what happened then. Everybody knows, famous Midrash. Chushim berei Dan tamen hava. Chushim, the son of Dan, was there. V'yakiran le udneh. But he was deaf. Dan's son, Chushim, was deaf. Samar lahu, he sees all this commotion, and now he sees his grandfather waiting there to go into the Matzah of Chilei. He says, Mai, what's all this about? They're saying, come Akivai. This Esav is blocking us. He's not letting us through. He said, we're waiting for Naphtali to come back from Mitzrayim with the deed of sale that we know belongs to Yaakov. Chushim said to them, Yeh avi abba mutab b'zayon. He said, on what? Until Naphtali comes back, my grandfather is going to be standing there in embarrassment, waiting to get into the kivura. He's not having this. Shakal kufa. He took a hold of a stick. Natran ene, and he hit Machi Areshe. He hit Esav on the head. Natran ene. Esav's eyes fell out. V'naflu akad Yaakov, and fell by Yaakov's feet. Here the Gemara says eyes. And there's a version also about the head. Here the Gemara says eyes. Esav's eyes popped out and fell in front of Yaakov's feet. Now this part is even more interesting. Patchinuhu Yaakov le'enev achich. Yaakov opened his eyes. Yaakov's dead. Now he opened his eyes and he smiled. V'hainu dichtiv yismach tzadik ki hazan akam pa'amav yirhatz bedam rasha. The righteous will rejoice when he sees that the Risha'im are getting punished. At that hour, Rivka Imenu's nevuah came true. What did she say? Why will I lose both of them in one day? Remember, she said, Yaakov, run away. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Even though they didn't die in the same day, however, they were buried on the same day. So very interesting story. So they send Naphtali to go get the star. Dan, Chushim ben Dan says, what's going on here? Kills Esav. Now the Levaya continues. They were buried, the couples are buried next to each other. And there was a secret spot. Those were the spots. There was the covenant spot. And he wasn't allowed to be there. It was all Yaakov's now.
Let them brothers come out. After I go,
let's
bury yourself there.
It would come later, you're saying. Now he wanted that spot. That's his spot. He wanted to bury next to Yitzchak, next to Leah. Now we can have. Here, Rabbi Shapsi the 11th tells over a story. It used to be known. It was a great Hasidic Rebbe. They called him the Saraf. You know, we say Sarafim, V'chayot, V'ofanei HaKodesh, the different types of angels. A Saraf is a fiery angel. They used to call this Hasidic Rebbe the fiery angel. Why? When he stood in prayer, you could see he was all emotional and he was like in a fire. He was very, very fiery when he was praying. It happened once that a Jew from Germany came to his city where this Hasidic Rebbe lived, in the city of Trisk, and he was davening there with the Rebbe. He was staying by the Rebbe's house, actually, and he was davening there. And he saw the Rebbe was very excited. Very, very, very. And as the week went by, on Friday, the Rebbetzin asks this German Jew, what do you think about everything you see here in the Hasidus of this city? The German Jew said, I think everything here is beautiful. It's all nice. There's only one problem I have here. She says, what's the problem? He says to her, I can't take the Rebbe. Why is he so much jumping up and down and dancing and everything when he's davening? When you dive, you have to be, spakoina, quiet. You have to do it with the respect. Now so much fire. She says, my husband, when he davens, his heart's on fire. When you're on fire, you have to dance. He says, no, my heart's also on fire. I'm very excited for Hashem. I'm very happy when I daven. But you have to have, decorum when you daven. She said, no, his heart's on fire. He said, no, my heart's also on fire. No, she did not going to argue with him. Friday, right before Shabbat, this German Jew comes over to the Rebbe and says, listen, I have a lot of money on me. I don't want to leave it in my room over Shabbat. Can you please put it away somewhere safe in your house? And Motzei Shabbat, I'll take it back from you. She says, of course, we do it every time for all our guests. She takes the money bag, she puts it away. No, Shabbat goes through, everybody had a great Shabbat. Right after Havdalah, this German Jew comes over and tells the Rebbetzin, I need my money bag back. And she turns to him and says, what money are you talking about? He says to the Rebbetzin, yo, stop playing, it's no joke. I need my money back. And she says, maybe you got things mixed up, maybe you're confused. I don't have no money bag. He says, what are you talking about? I gave you all my money. How am I going to pay all my loans, all my chiyuvim, everything that I owe? You have to give back my money. She says, maybe you gave it to somebody else. You didn't give it to me. She says, stop playing. What type of game is this here? All my money is in there. You're crazy. Give it back to me. She says, why are you screaming? Why am I screaming? You're getting me all burned up inside. I'm so angry. I'm so all over the place inside. And she says, you mean your heart's on fire? You're full of emotion. Yeah. You're all emotion. She says, yes, I'm emotional. Give me back my money. She says, you see, my husband's also emotional. But he's emotional over his prayer, not over money. There's a big difference of what you get emotional and where your fire in your spirit comes out in. And so there is fire and emotion. And so we see that Hushim bin Dan, he had this fire and emotion. He said, my grandpa's not going to be standing here waiting until Naphtali comes back. What, all this time he's going to be baking in the sun? You have to continue the Vayeh. You can't stop the Kavura. So he went and did something. The question, though, is, what about Yosef and all his brothers? There was tons of tzaddikim there. Why didn't they do anything about it? So there's a Gemara, another Gemara, the Gemara in Ketubot. It says a very interesting story. There was a rabbi, Rabbi Hanina, that went away to learn Torah for 13 years. And by the time he came back to his city, the whole city changed. 13 years he was away from his house. He came back after 13 years. Whole city changed. He couldn't find his way home. So what did he do? He stayed by the well. He was staying by the well, and he heard that someone said that Rabbi Hanina's daughter is coming to draw water. Now he saw his daughter, 13 years, haven't seen her, so she completely changed. So he waited for her to walk back home. And when she was walking back home, he followed her. He finally got home. What happened at home? The Gemara tells us that the wife was busy sifting flour. She was making challah. She was looking over the flour, and suddenly, the Gemara says, Savi liba. She saw him, and she died. She saw her husband after 13 years, and it says Savi liba. Rashi says it means her heart saw. After she died, Rabbi Hanina prayed, and she came back to life. The question is, what does it mean by she saw it with her heart? Savi liba, and she died. What happened? And if she saw with her eyes, she wouldn't die? So Rav Shabsi Levit says, that's the point. You see, when it goes from your eye to your heart, it has time to cool down. The emotion has time to cool down. But if it goes straight to your heart, it doesn't have time to cool down. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says, you know what happened? And it happens all the time. Something very bad happens. But then we have a midah called adaptability. We start to adapt to our conditions. And we start to adapt, and we start to think things become normal. And so it's not a big deal anymore. And it's okay if it happened. And that was the problem. Hushim bin Dan didn't hear the whole conversation. He just heard about it right now. He's like, what do you mean? This doesn't make any sense. Boom. And took care of the deal. Others were there, and they started getting used to the situation already. I remember when I was in high school, we read a story by Mark Twain. It was called "The King, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court." Okay, the premise of the story is that there is an American from 1900s. He gets hit on the head, and he finds himself back in King Arthur's Court. It was like many 100 years before, in a very brutal society, where he sees the king. Someone came to do something for the king, and the king didn't like it, and the king chopped off the guy's head. That's the way it was in the ancient societies. So now he's an American from the future back in the past, and he. At first, the story goes, if you pay attention to the story, at first, he tries to, he becomes like a magician, and they call him the boss. That's the whole thing of the story. Anyway, and he tries to tell the king, don't kill people. Why have to kill them just because you didn't like something? But as the story goes on, he starts telling the king to kill people also. What happens? He got adapted to his situation. When you get adapted to the situation, you don't think, the sensitivities don't bother you anymore. Rav Pam would also say, he says that you live in America, you see all these things around you, the society around you, you think it's okay, so then it starts to creep into Jewish society also. You know, it's something you think about. You give the kids to play video games. They play GTA. They run around, start shooting, killing, picking in the cars, stealing cars. And then you send the kid outside and he starts doing, maybe he doesn't do all those crazy things, but he does some things. Why? Because that's what he's spending his time around. He loses his sensitivity. He gets adapted to a different culture now. And so it's very important to keep our sensitivities in touch. And just like the Saraf had his emotional fire for Torah, for davening, for prayer, we should also have our emotions burning and yearning to do the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so, to recap the 3 lessons that we learned. The first lesson that we learned was about Hesed Emet, doing a true kindness that Hashem is 100% going to pay us back for. Don't expect people to pay you back. Don't look for people to give you respect. Don't look for people to say thank you to you. Do it for God. And Hashem will definitely take care of you. Hesed Emet. Then we learned the second lesson of how to influence people and how to fix our relationships, how to give people the respect, give them a smile, give them a compliment, and that's going to change their whole world. And third, we learned the lesson of Hushim bin Dan, that we have to have our sensitivities, Torah sensitivities. Don't adapt to alien cultures. Don't adapt to what's not Torah life. And B'ezrat Hashem, we keep our fire burning. And with this, I would love to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.